The Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce was founded 100 years ago this month. Over the years, it has grown to become one of the biggest and most influential chambers of commerce, not only in New York, but anywhere in the country. At the 100th anniversary gala earlier this month, City and State interviewed some of Brooklyn's most prominent figures about their roots in the borough, how the borough has changed over the decades, and the role played by the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce. I'm John Lentz, City and State's Editor-in-Chief, and this is a City and State Presents podcast.
This is Denise, Arbesu, the board chair of the Brooklyn Chamber, and this is a proud historic evening for the Chamber. We're celebrating our 100th anniversary, and it's been, as you know, started out gloriously right after World War I, and here we are today, and the 21st century, and we're on a roll. I am also a lender, Senior Vice President at City Commercial Bank.
Okay, hi, I'm Peter Meyer. I am the Centennial chair, the chair of the Centennial Gala. I'm also a former chair of the Chamber of Commerce and have been involved with the Chamber for about 25 or 30 years. And tonight is just a really, really special night. I think it's lots of words, historic, astonishing. I think one of the thread that I see is the diversity of the crowd here and the generational link. We have chairs and presidents of the Chamber and businesses that have been in Brooklyn here for 50 years, and they're still members, and there's three generations of people here, and it just makes it a really special night. We have all of our electeds here. You just see the real outpouring of pride about Brooklyn, what's been accomplished in the past, the things that we were able to overcome a couple of decades ago, and I think the future is even brighter than where we are right now, and it's because of great membership in the Chamber.
And to get a little more personal for 1 second, if you could talk about your own roots in the borough and how you've seen it change over the years.
Well, I can share my story. I came to Brooklyn in 1994, not knowing a soul, and I'm an immigrant. So to me, joining the Chamber opened doors, and I actually attribute all of my successes to the Chamber for its networking, its programs, and it also gave me a lot of confidence to go up and meet new people and to try to network and just open doors for myself, because Brooklyn is still the largest neighborhood. You know, even though it is, the third or fourth largest city, if it were an independent city today, it is still very much about neighborhoods, about people doing repeat business with people that they know and see on a daily basis, and that's what the Chamber did for me. Not having known a single soul, I was told, join the Chamber and it will open doors for you, and I can attest to that. And I share this whenever we have a new members orientation meeting. I'd let them know how I started my career here in Brooklyn, not knowing anyone. I was diligent about going to the Chamber networking events. And you know, it is a little bit hard, but we have our ambassador role where we welcome new members and we introduce people and we encourage people to support one another and do business with one another. I think that's the spirit of what is the strength of the Chamber.
So I grew up in New York City. I was born in New York City in the great borough of Queens, but I had the really good fortune of going to high school, college, and graduate school all here in Brooklyn. And as a result, it seemed as though my life always pulled me back into Brooklyn. In my day job, I'm the president of TD Bank here in New York City, and it's just, having that community roots and understanding what goes on, how businesses and communities thrive when they all do well, which is really a hallmark of the Chamber, is how embedded in the communities the Chamber is. But I've got to say that Brooklyn's been so good to me all my life. I met a lot of great people. I met my wife here,
right.
And she's sitting right next to me here. So there's just, I look at the crowd tonight and I see so many great people out there, so many great leaders, each who have made this borough the place that it is. And everybody in the world wants to come to Brooklyn. And when you go around the world and you say, I'm from Brooklyn, people just want to know more about it.
It is also the chicest place to be, and everybody knows about Brooklyn.
So,
and
yeah.
I think everyone wants to imitate us and be like us, and we are here to help spread that word. And
Well, there can be no imitations. But,
no, that's true, but they can come close.
And that's a good note to close it on. Thank you both for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thank
evening.
you.
Yep.
So I'm Carlo Scissura. I was president of the Chamber, Brooklyn Chamber, for 5 years, and I'm the president and CEO of the New York Building Congress. My parents came from Italy in 1967, so I am first generation. I was born here at Long Island College Hospital, which is now a hole in the ground. So I was born and raised here, and so I think I have pretty deep roots.
And given your lifetime here, tell me how you've seen the borough change in general, but also economically in the business environment.
So it's interesting. When I grew up in Brooklyn, the goal for people was you grew up in Brooklyn, you go to high school here, and then you leave. The goal now is, oh my God, how am I going to afford to stay here because I don't want to leave? So in the last 40 years, we've seen a total transformation. We went from a place where people left to a place where people want to be. We went from a place where, there was extra housing, there were, empty homes, there were empty buildings, to a place where every square inch is full. So Brooklyn has transformed itself from someplace that was kind of stagnant to a place that is the hottest place in the world. And it's the jobs, the economy, the immigrants, the people living here, the people that want to stay here, the fact that when a couple or a single or anyone has kids, they don't want to leave, they want to stay, they don't want to move to the suburbs. That all brings together the excitement of this borough. And it's hot everywhere, which is great.
And then finally, talk to me about the role that the Brooklyn Chamber has played over the years in that transformation.
I mean, look, the Chamber was here during every part of the economy. When it was hot, it was here. When companies were leaving, the Chamber in the 50s and 60s and 70s was doing its part to try and keep people here. In the 80s and 90s and the 2000s, it was about let's transform, let's help the new manufacturers, the designers, the foodies, the medical, the hospitals, the universities. Now the Chamber is about tomorrow. So what's next? What's hot? What are the economies that we need to do? And the most important thing about the Chamber is it's not a downtown organization. It's an organization that hits Coney Island and Sheepshead Bay and Central Brooklyn and Bay Ridge and every place in between. So it is a Chamber of Commerce for every part of the borough.
And just one last question. You said the Chamber's about what's next. What is next?
I think there are parts of Brooklyn that we have yet to see their greatest potential, and it's happening. So whether it's Central Brooklyn or East New York, Coney Island, I think there are industries that we don't know about yet. Maybe there's an Apple in our future. Who knows, right? We don't know what's happening. We don't know what the next wave is going to be. We don't know what the big company of the future that's going to have roots here and grow here. We're open and we're excited about it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Carlo.
John. Good seeing you.
Okay, my name is Marty Markowitz, and I was a former Brooklyn Borough president, and before that a state senator for 23 years, Brooklyn. Born and raised in Brooklyn. I'll be 73 next Wednesday, so I have been here just about every day of my life.
And over that time, how have you seen the borough change in general, but also economically in terms of the business environment?
Well, I saw Brooklyn when it was very, very strong economically, and it was almost an idyllic place to live in the late 40s, 50s, and then some changes, of course, in the early, mid-60s. So I saw it in its era when it was flourishing. Of course, I was very young, and I saw its challenges, as many urban centers across America, and I saw its rebirth. And Brooklyn's economic strength is dependent on its own efforts, its own reputation, and in coordination with the rest of the city.
And final question, talk to me about the role that the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce has played in the changing borough over the years?
Yeah, well, I must tell you that the Brooklyn Chamber always believed in the ability of Brooklyn companies to grow and flourish. Now, it was a lot of years when that was challenging. There was disinvestment, there was flight, urban decay. But through all those years, in spite of the challenges, they were able to always be supportive of Brooklyn. And certainly in the late 90s and early and mid 2000 through the first decade, and today they have definitely immeasurably helped companies really not only realize their potential, but help them along the way. And in diverse neighborhoods, not just downtown Brooklyn, but all over the borough.
Marty, thanks so much for your
My
time.
pleasure. Thanks.
How are you? Eric Adams, Brooklyn Borough President. Long-time Brooklynite. Born in Brownsville. We moved to Queens for a short period of time, and I returned to Brooklyn when I was 18, and I have been here ever since and watched this borough evolve in a real way.
And following up on that, if you could tell me specifically how you've seen the borough change in general, but also economically, the business environment.
Well, I think that, my view in being able to see the borough change really is a front seat view. As a police officer, many of the communities now that you are watching grow and thrive were communities I policed in. Williamsburg, Greenpoint, Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brownsville. And so I knew the change that we were going through. And a lot of the change is some of the change people question. You see a large number of properties going up that are extremely expensive. But there's also this energy in Brooklyn that if we embrace it, we'll see that it's a beautiful experience as we see the diversity. 47% of Brooklynites speak a language other than English at home. That's an amazing opportunity to really grow out of your comfort zone, and that's what we encourage.
And finally, what role has the Brooklyn Chamber played, in your view, over the years?
I think it's about business. We're here at their 100 Centennial. It states that they were around for 100 years. You cannot build anything great if all you can have success is in one particular pocket of time. It's the continuation of that. And they have built a great infrastructure with Peter Myers and Denise then taking over after, and Carlos then turning the reins over to Andrew. But that continuation of producing a good product, and I think that you're seeing the results of that, and they're going to be around for another 100 years.
Borough President, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So, Congresswoman Nydia Velazquez, representing the 7th Congressional District. I have all Williamsburg, Bushwick, East New York. I represent Cypress Hill, Brooklyn Heights, part of Park Slope, Red Hook. So everything that is changing, all the transformation that have been taking place, the waterfront is in my district. And I'm very proud of Brooklyn becoming such a trademark when it comes to the economic transformation of this borough. We have a borough that is welcoming, where people look at it not only to come and live, but also to open up their businesses. The Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce has played an important role in representing and advocating for those issues that are important to the business community. I always say that it is our responsibility as elected officials to make sure that we provide a climate that is conducive for small businesses to flourish and to expand and to create the jobs that we need. And because they do, to allow them to do what they do best, and that is creating jobs. So one of the largest sectors that we have in Brooklyn is the healthcare sector. And then manufacturing. In my district, whether it's Sunset Park, the waterfront in Sunset Park, or the waterfront in Red Hook, you see that it's not only a working waterfront, but we are combining recreation with a waterfront that is meaningful in terms of the type of manufacturing that is still there. And we need to make sure that we provide public access to the waterfront, but at the same time that we could say jobs and homes and residents can be hand in hand with the kind of industrial sector and manufacturing that is so characteristic of Brooklyn.
Congresswoman, thanks so much for your time.
Sure, thank you.
My name is Senator Marty Golden. I represent the 22nd Senatorial District, Bay Ridge, Dyker, Bensonhurst, Midwood, Gravesend, Garrison Beach, Manhattan Beach, Marine Park, part of Flatbush, part of Borough Park. So I have a large constituency, and it's a community that's growing and growing better than ever. My parents immigrated from Ireland back in the 1940s, and I was the firstborn. There were 8 of us born in 10 years. So Mom and Dad were quite busy, but they did bring us up and give us a great education and great direction in life. And my first life was as a New York City police officer, and I enjoyed that job. It was an immense job. I was able to help people. It was a different world back then when I was a police officer back in the 70s and 80s. Compared to today, where we have the lowest crime rate that we've ever seen, and for a large city here in the great city and state of New York. This was just different. And my other brothers and sisters were extremely successful as well in doing what they did. And from being a police officer, I moved into being a business owner, owning Bay Ridge Manor and some catering halls, some restaurants, and some properties. And then I went into the City Council in 1998 and the State Senate in 2002. And I've been able to develop a number of pieces of legislation that have helped our communities across the board, from our seniors to our educational system to our transportation system, and working, of course, with economic development to create the jobs and the atmosphere that we need to make this city and state work. So I've enjoyed this immensely, and I'm looking forward to this new challenge we have with a new president, and being able to develop and to make the city and state work in this complex tax structure that we have before us. But I think it will happen, and I think working with my colleagues in government, we will see this city, the strongest city, the greatest city, and the greatest nation in the world. That's why my parents came here, that's why my kids are here, and that's why their kids will be here, because it is a great city.
And you alluded to this already, but tell me more about how the borough has changed, specifically in terms of economic development and the business environment.
I got to tell you, when I was a police officer back in the 70s and 80s, there were parts of this city you would not walk through. Never mind think about creating jobs. And the robberies and the murders and the burglaries that are going on, and the stealing of vehicles. It was obscene. And of course, the regulations that came through the 80s made it more difficult for business to want to stay here and to develop as well. So what we needed is something different, and Brooklyn seemed to be that place, not only for the state of New York, but for the nation. Our kids would go to Texas. They would go to California because they had tax credits for different digital and gaming and technology. Well, now that's changed. We've been able to bring those kids, our kids that were leaving, and now staying here, and they're living here, and they are raising their families here, because we have the economic development and the jobs to be able to do that. We have the safest, greatest city in the nation. We have a transportation system that needs help, but it is working. It's going to get better, and I think we do have a good transportation system in spite of what we hear, but it's got to get better. It's still got to get better. But I got to tell you right now, the way this city is going right now, Brooklyn is on fire. Brooklyn is the place to be. Our families want to be here, whether you're in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, whether you're in Industry City, whether you're in the Shine Building, the Federal Building, whether you're at the Army Terminal, whether you're in East New York, whether you're in Brownstone, Brooklyn, or whether you're in Bay Ridge or Dyker or Bensonhurst. The jobs are there. The education system's equal to none. NYU, Pratt, Carnegie Mellon. We have the best. Brooklyn College, Kingsborough College. We have the best. St. Francis College. We have the best for our kids, and our education, my school districts, 20, 21, 22, the best in the city. And that's what we're going to strive to do. $27 billion we're putting into education this year. That is what gives the families the reason to want to stay here, to live here, to work here, and to raise their families.
And then just one last question, Senator. If you could give some remarks about the Brooklyn Chamber, who's celebrating its centennial tonight, the role it has played over the years from your perspective.
I go back a long time with the Brooklyn Chamber. You got to remember, I owned a business, and I was in the Brooklyn Chamber going way, way back. So to see the different leadership, the more recent leadership of Carlo Scissura moving over to Building Congress, and of course Andrew Honan today, the president and the chief operating officer of this great organization, you see more businesses joining in to the Brooklyn Chamber because there is a vision over this leadership and the past leadership and moving forward and making sure that we drive that commerce to Brooklyn. We got to make sure that we get design built. We got to make sure the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway is good. We got to make sure we take care of our shipping industry. You have a 2 million square foot project going over in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. You have a new project going underneath the Brooklyn Bridge. There's going to be housing and offices in Red Hook, a new train going into Red Hook if that gets passed in this budget. You're going to see a lot of things happening. 7 million square feet in Industry City available for jobs to be created. I'm talking to companies from Israel, from Asia, that want to come here and create the jobs because this is the place they want to be. And we're not talking about a few hundred jobs, we're talking about tens of thousands of jobs coming into the city and state of New York because of the economic development and viability that we are giving this county, this city, this state, and that we offer these companies today to come to Brooklyn. So I think we got a great future, and the Brooklyn Chamber has played a key role in making that happen.
Thanks so much, Senator.
Thank you.
Brad Lander from the New York City Council's 39th District, all in Brooklyn.
And if you could tell me, first of all, about your roots in Brooklyn, how far that goes back, how long you've been in the borough.
Yeah, so I'm not a lifelong Brooklynite. I've been here about 25 years now. We moved to New York when, I'm from the Midwest, from St. Louis. My wife's from outside of Akron, Ohio. We came here when she went to NYU, like so many people. She came for school. We lived a couple of months in Manhattan, and we're ready to get out of there pretty quickly. And we moved to Park Slope in 1992, 1993, and have been here ever since.
And tell me about the changes you've seen during your time in Brooklyn in general, but also economically in terms of the business environment.
Absolutely. So, the job I got right away was as executive director of the Fifth Avenue Committee. And at that time, Fifth Avenue Committee does affordable housing and works on revitalizing the neighborhood. At that time, Fifth Avenue had around it in Park Slope 150 vacant buildings, 100 vacant lots. It was not the Park Slope of today. So we worked to renovate those buildings, turn them into affordable housing, help get the storefronts revitalized. But the thing that I found so compelling is that even then, at the sort of bottom of Brooklyn's recession, people understood the need to invest in real shared prosperity and make sure that when it came back up, it didn't push people out, that we built affordable housing, that we strengthened the rent laws, that we thought about workforce development so people could rise together. And I think that's what's so special about the chamber. There's no other Brooklyn chamber of, no other chamber of commerce in the country that I know of that celebrates like a left-winger like me. We've found ways to work together to make sure that the prosperity that gets built is truly shared, and that's something pretty special.
Councilman, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Assemblywoman Joanne Simon from the 52nd Assembly District here in downtown Brooklyn.
And if you could tell me about your roots in the borough of Brooklyn, how far that goes back.
Well, I moved to Brooklyn in 1981. I was about looking to get my PhD in clinical psychology at LIU, which is another downtown Brooklyn institution. I ended up not doing that and working on Wall Street for a while, and then went back to law school. But I've been in Brooklyn since 1981, and I've been in my neighborhood of Boerum Hill since 1983.
And during that time, how have you seen the borough change or transform?
Well, in so many ways, it's really hard to explain. When I moved to Boerum Hill, I like to say that when I moved there were only 4 brothels left on my block. And I'm not kidding. We were, very overlooked. We had a very dicey environment for many years. We had a lot of drug dealing. Crack really hit the brownstone neighborhoods of Brooklyn very hard. But it was also a great, vibrant community and a lot of really good people there that put down roots, really lived their beliefs, which was to live in a diverse environment and to live in an urban environment and give back to the community. And the community now has changed dramatically. It used to be the cops didn't even want to come. If somebody was called, they would say, what are you doing living there? When I took a car home from Wall Street, the cabs would say, honey, why are you living in a slum? And that doesn't happen anymore. Now, of course, people have discovered the joys of Brooklyn, of brownstone living, of having a backyard, raising your family in an area where everybody knows everybody and everybody is open and welcome, and everybody participates in one way or another. So it's been a great ride, and Brooklyn is really just growing by leaps and bounds, and for the most part, it's all good.
And then finally, any changes you've seen for the business environment, and secondly, what role the Brooklyn Chamber may have played?
Well, certainly the business environment has changed. One of the things we've seen, and sometimes that leads to some disagreements about some things, and that is we've had a lot of development in the downtown Brooklyn area, some of which was residential after the rezoning, which a lot of the business interests didn't see coming. They really thought it would be commercial. Now that commercial market is coming back. But one of the things that I think we've been at the kind of the juxtaposition of a change in society, and that is, the big back offices that people envisioned in terms of the buildings they wanted. We don't do that anymore. The size of the computers are tiny. Everything is on your phone. So we have so many people living and working in Brooklyn. We have so many people working in the downtown Brooklyn community who are also living in the downtown Brooklyn community, and in the brownstone neighborhood. So the nature of business has changed, and I think the thing that the Chamber has done so well is to see that happening and to respond to that and to recognize that business is everywhere in Brooklyn. So they have really reached out to small businesses around the borough and really built that up. And so I think it's great that all the commerce in the borough is not in the downtown Brooklyn area. It's really important for all of Brooklyn to grow and to connect with each other. So I feel that we're much more connected to other parts of the borough because of a lot of the actions that the Chamber has done.
Assalamualaikum, thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.